dark night of the soul versus trauma. What most gurus won't tell you. It is important to know that not every painful experience is a spiritual crisis, and not every spiritual crisis is trauma. We need to understand the difference, as it plays a huge role during emotional healing. What is the dark night of the soul? It is described as a state of deeper inner purification, a season where old beliefs, identities, and certainties fall apart, and a person is left with nothing familiar to hold on to. It is an extremely difficult and painful period in one's life that many wish not to experience. On the other hand, trauma is not about one's faith, beliefs, or identity. Trauma is a psychological and emotional response to anything that threatens a person's safety or life. According to research by Yokai Ataria, a researcher specializing in phenomenology of consciousness, trauma, and mystical experiences, states in the Sage Journals that trauma involves a fundamental threat to life or bodily integrity. This is a key difference that many spiritual teachers ignore. Really, these two experiences can look similar. Both can involve fear, confusion, and a loss of identity. Both can make life feel empty, and so people mix them up. In fact, Yokai Ataria also explains in his 2016 article, Traumatic and Mystical Experiences, The Dark Nights of the Soul, published in the Journal of Humanistic Psychology, that both mystical and traumatic experiences share deep similarities rooted in the subject's encounter with nothingness. That means both can shake one's sense of reality. But even though they are similar, they are completely different experiences. A dark night of the soul is usually about inner growth. It often comes when your beliefs, identity, or life direction no longer feel true. It pushes you to question everything. As explained in the Center of Excellence Guide, it is a deep inner struggle that leads to greater self-awareness. Even though it is painful, it tends to move toward meaning and clarity over time. Trauma works differently. Trauma is not trying to teach you anything. It overwhelms your nervous system. It can leave lasting effects like anxiety, fear, flashbacks, or emotional numbness. Unlike a spiritual crisis, trauma is rooted in real events that were too much for the mind or body to handle. This is one of the truths many gurus avoid. Not all suffering is spiritual growth. Some people are told that their pain is part of awakening when they actually need therapy, safety, and support. It can be harmful. Psychiatrist Ronald W. Pies, in his article Psychiatry and the Dark Night of the Soul, warns that not every form of unhappiness is spiritual, noting that there are many ways not to be happy that do not equal depression. In the same way, not every painful state is a dark night. Another important difference is direction. A dark night of the soul often prompts an individual to look inward and reflect, but trauma pulls a person outward into fear, survival, or avoidance. One stimulates questioning, the other spurs a person to seek protection. So why do so many spiritual teachers, coaches, and gurus mix these two things up? Partly because both experiences are painful, and both can make a person feel lost, disconnected, and unable to function normally. Trauma can sometimes trigger what feels like a spiritual crisis. For example, losing someone, facing danger, or experiencing major stress can shatter your old view of life. It can open deeper questions about meaning, identity, and purpose. In this way, trauma can lead to a dark night, but they are not the same thing. Researchers like G. Duravilla and SDN explain in the article, The Dark Night of the Soul, Spiritual Distress and its Psychiatric Implications, that people going through spiritual crises often do not see them as illness, but as opportunities for reflecting on their lives. It shows another key difference: interpretation. In a dark night, people often search for meaning. In trauma, people often struggle just to feel safe again. What most gurus won't tell you is this: calling trauma a dark night of the soul can make people ignore real psychological wounds. It can make someone feel they must endure pain rather than heal it. But growth does not require unnecessary suffering, and healing is not weakness. A clearer way to understand it is this: a dark night of the soul is a crisis of meaning. Trauma is a crisis of safety. Both are serious experiences that deserve one's attention, but they need different responses. A spiritual crisis may need reflection, guidance, or personal growth. Trauma often needs therapy, support, and sometimes medical care. So do not always try to label your experience based on what society has labeled it. Rather, respond to it honestly. If your pain comes from deep fear, shock, or harm, it should be treated as trauma. If your pain comes from loss of meaning or identity, it may be a spiritual crisis. Doing this can protect you from misleading ideas and help you choose the right path to healing.